This is Jonathan Ferguson, the Keeper of Firearms and Artillery at the Royal Armouries Museum in the UK, which houses a collection of thousands of iconic weapons from throughout history. And I'm your host, Dave Jewett, and today we're breaking down the weapons of the epic Alien franchise.
I happen to have one here.
Of all the things you can say, I happen to have one here. The pulse rifle is a big one.
So, I do want to introduce you to a close personal friend of mine.
And this August, you can get 50% off our Patreon memberships with code SUMMER, meaning you can watch the director's cut of this episode, over 25 other extended episodes, and get early access to our upcoming Receiver episode, all for half off. Now, I'll introduce you to a personal friend of mine as I throw it over to Jonathan.
This is something I haven't really done much research into because, as far as I know, this is purely a prop build, like a scratch build. But it must have some kind of, I don't know what the componentry is in terms of found objects. The burner system, I don't know if it's based on a weed burner. I don't know enough about this flamethrower, which is funny because it's quite an iconic prop, really. Seems like a fairly dangerous thing to have on a pressure vessel. And that igniter with the stream of flame, it looks incredibly cool in the low light, but that seems like a real health and safety risk. This really is the only significant weapon in the first movie, which is why it was such a pivot to Aliens to suddenly have all this military hardware. But as fans will know, there are laser guns in this movie, and they are explained away in the, I think it's in the novelization, certainly in the script. You can glimpse them in the final cut as well, and they're sort of explained away as they would definitely burn a hole in the hull and we'd all die. So they would release the acid, I guess, is the main thing. But I'm not sure burning it with a flamethrower is definitely not going to release acid. Hey, they're thinking on their feet here. But it's an interesting design. It's really the old school movie thing of putting something mundane in a shell. You know, there's a lot of surface detail to that thing that doesn't really look like it does anything. It's aesthetic purposes, really, that it looks like that. The white finish, I think, is interesting. It really does feel like it's some kind of industrial tool that's being used as a weapon. I don't think it was ever intended to be a weapon. It wouldn't make sense in context if it was. Yeah, it's not by no means my favorite Aliens brackets S weapon, quote unquote, but it is absolutely integral to those amazing scenes, especially in the ducts where the thing is hunting, or they're hunting it, it's hunting them, and it's that thing you cling to. Same in isolation, you know, it makes such a great job of leveraging the flamethrower in isolation. It's a way to keep it away from you, or to drive it to a certain location, more so than to actually try and harm it, I guess, is really the idea with that.
This is an M41A pulse rifle.
Right in on Aliens with the classic, the unbeatable, the best. It's the M41A pulse rifle, which we are fortunate enough to have one of, which you might have seen before and you're gonna see again. One of a number, partly why it's so iconic is that it's so heavily featured in so many specifically memorable scenes, like the one I have in front of me here, with the Peace Through Superior Firepower shirt behind it, starting to give an idea of what this thing looks like, how it functions with the pump on there. Immediately you see this in 1986 and you're intrigued as to what the heck it is and what it can do. It's very short, very compact, with that encasing green/brown shroud over it, concealing some actually, again, pretty mundane firearms. But what a superb design this is. I could rave about it all day long. So I do want to introduce you to a close personal friend of mine. And it does feel like a close personal friend of mine because I've had a bit of a saga with prop pulse rifles over the last 10 to 15 years of my career. It's our own M41A pulse rifle, our very own. Not mine, ours. So ours is pretty much, and I've confirmed this as much as I can, this is pretty much as it came out of the Bapty Armoury, very old and very famous prop house in London, pretty much as it came out after Alien 3, where they didn't strip them all back down for parts. It got repainted green, which I have kind of mulled over and think, you know, it's almost a shame in a way that it isn't all black like in Alien 3, but of course we love the look of it in Aliens, so We won't attempt to restore it or conserve it back to black, which I believe is underneath. But I have just learned this was sprayed with the last can of the actual paint used to paint the Aliens pulse rifles. So that's definitely part of its history as a museum object. We definitely wouldn't be removing that paint. So what is this? Well, this was a real Thompson M1A1. Really surprises some people who don't spot the bits you can see that this is in fact the big old honking chunk of steel and, originally walnut as well, that was the Thompson, specifically the M1A1, or at least this one is an M1A1. So that's the heart of the pulse rifle. I happen to have one here.
Of all the things you can say, I happen to have one here, the pulse rifle is a big one.
I happen to have both of them. So yeah, under all of that dressing up box, effectively, is the humble, the venerable 1920s design, the M1A1 being mid-40s. Yeah, so clearly if you do away with the stock, you change the pistol grip, you hide the magazine. The magazine inside the pulse rifle is still the 20-round Thompson mag, and you ditch the furniture and the front sight block, which is pinned on. You can then dress this up as you see fit. If you've seen the behind-the-scenes footage of them testing, I think they show the Thompson, they certainly show an MP5. That has led a number of us to believe that the famous drawing, or famous if you know this stuff, by James Cameron, the concept art of the pulse rifle was based on that idea that it might be an MP5, something more modern. Not quite the case. So they had already gone to Baptiste, done some test firings to see what the muzzle flash looked like. That was a huge concern for them, that it should look big and impressive. And they found that 9mm didn't cut it. So they'd already decided to go with the Tommy gun before James Cameron drew that concept art, which the gun built by Simon Atherton at Baptiste is pretty close to, albeit Cameron's design is a bit more detailed and futuristic looking. They had to make this thing work with 1980s technology, with limited time and money. And I think the result was, well, iconic. So Tommy gun is the main thing. Only one of the pulse rifles ever built for use on screen had a shotgun inside another shotgun. So you can shotgun while you shotgun.
There's today's exhibit reference.
Got to get the exhibit in there somehow. So they took the heat shield or I guess receiver extension. I'm not sure what Frankie call this, but the distinctive slotted cage, as the fans call it, from the front of the Spas 12 and half of the pump grip. So they cut the pump grip in half and used the back half, and they used that as the shell on the one firing shotgun grenade launcher. Obviously, it's standing in for a 30mm grenade launcher. If you look at the rounds, they're far too small to be 30mm, but it's front and center. You rarely get such a beauty shot of a movie gun like that, and we have multiple in this movie. So that one with the 10 holes in the vent, that's the Gucciest of Gucci pulse rifles, with both guns in there originally firing. And this idea that they're both armor piercing and explosive is plausible. If somehow you fit that many 10mm caliber bullets into the weapon, but a little contradictory.
He talks about 10mm explosive tip caseless, but then you actually see brass come flying out, so it's actually not even caseless ammo.
Yeah, it's funny to see James Cameron actually pointing out that you see cases eject, which I spotted fairly early on. It's not the only. There are plenty of other sci-fi guns that probably shouldn't be ejecting cases where you see them. Back in the day with relatively low quality film, and not many people would even have known what caseless means. On one level, it's just techno-babble to make it sound futuristic and cool. So no one cared. Now it's a little bit more obvious with HD, 4K or whatever, and you clearly see the cases come out, as he is admitting there.
What are the sights like on your example? Because that's one of the things games have toyed with. Because obviously originally, I believe there's a lack of sights, it's just that but games for the first person view, aiming down sights, they either add some weird iron sight or start creating attachments to allow for futuristic optics, because player expectation is that you can aim down sights, and that wasn't built for that.
It wasn't built for that. I hate the sights on pulse rifles. That Neil Blomkamp thing that he showed, which I think was just kind of to stir up interest. I think it's just his personal replica with like Picatinny rails and a modern optic, like a present day optic on it. I hate that stuff. This is a pulse rifle. Games change it up all the time. Like even the VR game that came out, they've redesigned. The shroud is like the same shape, but everything else has changed. I don't really know why people insist on changing it. The excellent Rebellion AVP games changed it, and then increasingly post Call of Duty, they want to modularize and let you put sights on there for upgrade reasons. So it's not just aim down sights. Of course, as you say, we expect to bring it up and there be something to and of course to use it properly. There'd have to be some sort of sighting system. I don't know if Cameron intended it to be built into the helmet, but they don't use, apart from the smart gunners, they don't use any kind of aiming system that's on their helmets. No one actually even tries to deploy the stock, much less actually get into the aim. Not quite Starship Troopers level of fire discipline, but very much firing from the hip, unsighted, and often a bit panicked, which is kind of understandable. But yeah, so you can, if you're going to do sights on a pulse rifle, if anyone wants to know my view, you can see that all there is on this is a channel. It is heavily implied that, especially with these raised ears at the back, that there's some sort of sight within that channel. And you could these days, you could build a red dot into the shroud and you would be able to use it as a red dot sight. So that's my take on sights. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
You probably could do a TED Talk on this gun as well.
I don't think it would have been the same movie if it had been firing plasma blasts or bolts or whatever. I think it would have... It still would have been cool. It would have been kind of Terminator Future War look to it, I guess. But it's not as satisfying as that war movie, visceral, bullet-shredding aliens, that very distinctive report, sort of stuttering sound to the bursts that they're firing.
The sound effect is as iconic as the shape of the weapon, I would say.
Yeah, that kind of stuttering, phasing, or flange. I think someone said it was a flange effect that they were putting on there. Slightly undermined by the fairly ordinary sound archive bang bang of the pistol going off. But it does kind of imply that the pulse rifles are using something, some high-tech propellant maybe. The scenes with the grenades are great, limited, not that many of them, but when they're there, it has some real punch. It just looks great, sounds great on camera. Another iconic scene with the pulse rifle, only this time, we've got added flamethrower strapped or taped to the side. We make much more of the grenade launcher here in the suit-up scene or the prep scene, and then the scene in the hive where she's pumping rounds off into the eggs and blowing them up.
The whole idea of, she uses like a ratchet strap and duct tape to attach the flamethrower. It's all desperation.
Yeah, and you really get the sense that all this kit weighs a ton. The fact that she's like reacting and point shooting works perfectly well for that scene.
Super quickly, but we are currently running a sale over on our Patreon where everything is half price. So if you're enjoying this video, you can head over there, check out the director's cut, and enjoy a 24-minute breakdown of the iconic Aliens pulse rifle. By becoming a patron, you will also get early access to all of our other episodes, as well as podcasts, Discord access, and you can even submit your own game or movie clips for future community episodes. Either way, whether you join the Patreon or watch along here on YouTube, I want to say thank you for watching, thank you for supporting us, and now I'll get back to the video.
The smart gun probably should be the star of the movie, guns-wise, but I'm still a pulse rifle guy. But these are so cool. So here's James Cameron talking about the smart gun and his idea for it, and the idea that you have a support weapon that you can fire on the move, on the run even, which in a funny way harks back to the Browning automatic rifle of the First World War, where they're not running with them, but the idea was you walked toward the enemy, the butt goes in a cup on your belt, and you fire with strict fire discipline. You fire on the advance, you change magazines, and the weight of the thing is supported on your belt. I don't know if he knew about that detail, or if he just independently came up with the idea of something that is load-bearing off your kit in that way, and it helps with obviously the weight of the thing, but also to keep it on target. And for the BAR, it did help keep it on target because it was meant to be fired at waist, leveled at waist height. So in a weird way, this is a deliberate or not, it's a callback to the original walking fire concept of the BAR, or the assault phase rifle, as it was sometimes known. The gun, of course, is the MG42, as he rightly says. Bapty had a number of them, and they're a nice high rate of fire belt-fed gun. obvious candidate for this, and you're going to get plenty of muzzle flash out of it, even with the booster / what the British would have called a flash eliminator, but it doesn't eliminate the flash. It just helps hide the most intense bit at the base of the blast, as it were. And it kind of has, despite being a 1940s design, doesn't take much dressing up to make it look quite sci-fi with that squarish barrel jacket. The original idea, I believe, was that the belts would be hidden inside those drums, so it's like it's mag-fed, but high-capacity magazine, as it were. That's fine. I think it moves it away slightly from his concept art, which shows it as quite a self-enclosed, sci-fi-looking system. Can I just say that as much for all the talk about muzzle flash with the pulse rifle, that star flash from the Smart Gun is just amazing. Love that. And that's been done, I guess you get that with birdcage, A1 birdcage flash suppressors with movie blanks as well. But there's something about that particular flash that implies that this thing is somehow way more powerful. And also implementing how they track. Because Cameron is only talking about stabilizing the gun and load bearing from your body, like a knight wearing armor, which mainly bears on the hips, so you don't feel it as much, and it's distributed over your body. The Steadicam camera rig vest that they've adapted for this, he's only talking about using it for weight and stability. Well, stability really, but by weight by implication. But it is called a Smart Gun in the movie, and they have those eye-cup sighting systems on there. So heavily implied that they are auto-tracking to some extent, and we certainly see the sentry guns in the special edition. They are identifying and tracking and engaging targets. So some kind of guided system, seemingly. Maybe it's smart in the sense of a modern smart optic, where it identifies, tracks multiple targets potentially for you, and then has what they call a disturbed reticle that allows you to adjust your point of aim, point of impact relationship, but you're still steering the gun, putting the thing on the thing, just like you do when you're playing a first-person shooter or whatever. I don't know if he intended to have it help steer the gun toward the target. A lot of games do it that way. I don't know. I like to think that they're the ones doing the precision control through sheer force of will and drills and all of that, and it's the optic and the detector that's integrated to the system, the sensor. That's what makes it smart. Don't know. Could be both, very plausibly, but we don't see it steering itself, of course, but then we wouldn't do.
Haven't real militaries toyed with the idea of using the Steadicam rig on real weapons? I've seen some chats about using them in a helicopter, and I remember seeing an old image of, I think it was a guy with a G3. One attached to a G3?
As far as I know, there was that one for heli-borne shooting, which sort of makes some sense because you want some sort of gyroscopic stability going on from a mount. That makes some sense. And the crazy, sorry guys, but the crazy Aussie rifle system with like the crane arm and some like, I don't know what it was, line that you're hanging the gun off, and then you're using it like this. Both of those, I believe, were sort of entrepreneurial exercise projects. And they still did it, don't get me wrong, they're still trying out the concept, very clearly inspired by this movie, but I don't think they were formal military trials. I'm suitably infused to go and look at my notes on this later, but yeah, not seriously. Not in any way that has ended up in use, put it that way.
I'd like to keep this handy for close encounter.
Here is the other shotgun that's in Aliens, and this time it really is presenting as a shotgun rather than disguised as a grenade launcher. And it's the Ithaca Model 37. We've got a version here. Now, storytelling-wise, I think this is great. And unfortunately, the games have gone a bit wild with it and keep putting it in the games like it's some sort of standard issue weapon. It's clearly never intended to be that. Hicks literally calls it an heirloom in the movie because a cut down 12 gauge shotgun, I don't know if it's meant to be slug or buckshot. There's clearly some deficiency in the pulse rifle from his point of view at close range, or just as a backup, maybe to as an expedient door breacher. Who knows? But he seems to be implying it's a close combat. Well, he is saying it's a close combat weapon. He's carrying his great granddad's Vietnam era. These were issued in Vietnam. This is a sporting one, pump action shotgun. It's just ironic that inside the pulse rifle is another type of pump action shotgun that is pretending to be something else. And this is my least favorite weapon in Aliens, Not for how it's depicted, because it's great in the scenes with the flamethrower, the Wazowski setting fire to himself.
Wait, can I guess why it's your least favourite? Is it because it has an M16 carry handle randomly put on top of it?
No, I mean, yes. Yeah, totally. Don't get me wrong, I don't think it looks bad. If you've never seen an M16 or an AR-15 before, you'd go, oh, that's a cool looking sci-fi flamethrower. I like the design of the fuel tank, the nozzle. We don't have that ridiculously flamey bit at the end that we had in Alien. This looks like a much more purposeful, compact. It doesn't have a huge backpack. Maybe we've got somehow some kind of dilute fuel in there, or maybe we just have a fast reload system for the tanks. Don't know. Don't see any spare tanks. But it all looks great. Even the body of the gun looks okay from a distance. If you zoom in, it's also AR-15. I think flipped around. It's that carrying handle. You're making Vietnam in space. Don't put an iconic piece of Vietnam hardware front and center on your flamethrower. Right, yeah, the 2 pistols. 3 if you read the technical manual, and that's probably my least favorite thing about that book, is that they have a Colt 1911 in that book as the standard issue. The VP70 is in there as another standard issue. That's the one in the movie. What Vasquez has here is the Smith & Wesson Model 39, which I really like, by the way. I think the lines of that and that kind of, it's very compact. Games have sort of incorporated that as somehow an issue weapon. The technical manual includes the 1911. I don't know if they mistook Vasquez's Smith & Wesson for a 1911, or they just loved the 1911, wanted to make that the future pistol of the Colonial Marine Corps. Makes zero sense. It's like putting a carry handle on your flamethrower. It's but that thing from both World Wars was only introduced in the future and no, didn't make sense. Still love the book though. The standard issue pistol, by intent, and to be fair, in the movie as well, most of the pistols you see will be this, is the Heckler & Koch VP70, specifically the VP70M. You can see that from the grip shape and the insert in the slide. So this is designed to be fitted to a buttstock to make it 3-round burst as a carbine, but can of course be used as a pistol with a really terrible double action striker fired mechanism. Oh, that's rough. But look, it does look, so at this time, as Simon Atherton says in the footage there, this was very little known. So only your real gun nuts would have gone, oh, that's that new-ish. Actually, not that new. It had been introduced in 1970, had already kind of failed. So it wasn't like it was brand new, but newer than a 1911 or whatever. Only the hardcore would ever recognize this. Everyone else would go, oh yeah, that looks like a sci-fi pistol. In reality, really not that great. Sorry, HK. But it was the first to market with a polymer frame, and it's striker fired. It's just that Glock did both of those things much better in 1982. I have a complex relationship with Alien 3. I really appreciate what they were going for, and the battles that Fincher and everyone else went through to actually make even as good a movie as we got. You know, it's pretty amazing that it came out at all coherent. If you read or watch the stuff about the making of, unbelievable. It's probably the worst movie development hell for a movie that actually happened that I think I've ever heard of. And actually, I have just learned these pulse rifles at the end of Alien 3 were never meant to be there. This was a last-minute requirement. They probably had started shooting the movie, and they decided that they needed these commandos, these like weird, not Colonial Marines, but other Weyland-Yutani guys with pulse rifles. They needed them to show up and shoot one. And so the poor people at Bounty had to run around like headless chickens and rebuild pulse rifles and get them into this movie for just a few shots. And that's why we have this. And this is, more than anything, an Alien 3 pulse rifle, because these parts were put back together and this shroud was molded off one of the metal shrouds for this movie. So we at the very least, even if you don't like Alien 3, it's the reason why the Royal Armouries, the only museum in the world, only national museum, let's say that, that has an Aliens / Alien 3 pulse rifle. It's because they put them back together for this movie. Now, controversially, and I've said that I pretty much do like Alien 3, but it has a lot of problems, I really like Alien Resurrection. The gun in front of me Yeah, the weapons are my least favorite thing, I think, about Alien Resurrection. Not to say that I like the idea that they've tried to move away. I wanted to see pulse rifle smart gun type action, but we're 100+ years in the future, so realistically you're not going to see that. It would have been great if they'd come up with something anywhere near as iconic as either of those. They didn't. They gave us essentially Blade Runner blaster type tech, only very cluttered looking. I don't know, my impression of kind of comic book sci-fi anyways, the guns tend to go a bit more outlandish, a bit more impractical looking, boxy, greeblies, and that's what we see here. The pistol, I mean, it's not great. It's not my favorite, put it that way. It's very busy looking. The weird front sight tower, the fact it has iron sights on it, I'm not a big fan of. Don't know. And they kind of go for this single shot, like one big powerful shot rather than bursts of what appear to be weaker shots. It's a very different dynamic with the firefights in this movie. The ammo is interesting, where it's shown to be, again, like single big powerful slow firing shots, but then exploding rounds, like the one that goes into the alien's head and then bursts. That was fun. The Thermos gun is a cool, like he's like effectively a space pirate and he has to smuggle his gun in bits. It's a space derringer. What's fun is it looks like the guns are intended to fold, which gets around the height of them being a problem. I think the grip is folding into position. I never noticed this before, but I think that's what I just saw. At least on one of them, it looked like the grip frame. There was a folding Glock a few years ago that worked with a folding grip section on the frame. I think that's what they're trying to do here. Pistols themselves aren't really that inspiring design-wise. They're kind of blocky, generic. But at least they don't look like contemporary tech. My pet hate now is guns from now that aren't disguised or modified very well. The ricochet shot is fun. Very video gamey, very comic booky, but fun. They're very brutalist designs, very industrial looking. They look good on camera, I think. They don't really appeal to a purist pulse rifle fan like myself.
So a lot of them are built to sneak the weapons in, aren't they?
Yeah. To be fair, it's like the alien disguising itself as industrial bits and bobs on ships, space stations and stuff. It's almost like the guns are designed to do the same thing. The silly like anti-aircraft style sight on this thing is a bit jarring. Also, double barrel pump firing rapid semi-automatic shots. Unless the pump just charges the weapon first time. Not clear how it's firing. It would have to be some sort of metal storm superimposed load situation. So this looks like it contains an Uzi or an Ingram or something, but as far as I know, never did. We have this kind of flashlight ammo module or whatever it's supposed to be on the front, which makes no sense as a magazine if that's what it's supposed to be. Maybe it's a power pack to charge it up. I don't know if it's supposed to have... Oh, see, here's the detached unit. Kind of implies that it's electrically fired, and that's the flashlight and the battery, or maybe I'm reading into it. The way he hands him it, and he sort of slaps it into place, like without it wouldn't function. It looks cool as they're moving around, but how the hell do you aim it? Like we are well into the era of filmmaking where, in the real world, people who use these things are definitely aiming now. Hip fire is not really a thing, and here they are designing guns that he's trying his best to use it from the shoulder, but you can't really aim it. They're all so weird, these designs. This one that looks like a sort of Photoshop copy paste of itself. There's so many different designs as well that all seem to do similar damage in similar ways. Oh wait, this has got an underbarrel flamethrower, if I remember rightly. Oh no, it is the flamethrower. Underbarrel bullet firing weapon then. So this is a weird callback to Aliens where she's duct taping flamethrower to pulse rifle. This is a flamethrower with not really a pulse rifle, but a firearm designed into it, like a sort of master key, but I guess like the XM25 with the OICW, I should say, with the G36 carbine thing underneath it, where the primary weapon is the grenade launcher. Here, for some reason, the primary weapon is the flamethrower. I think that's what we're looking at. It's been a while since I've looked at these. Anyway, again, here's this idea of a weapon firing very slowly, very big, powerful, explosive rounds.
As far as I can tell, that round comes out of the same barrel the flame had been coming out of, though.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, so they're not really, they've come up with these designs, they're very abstract, they're very arty, they're very, I don't know, a lot of sci-fi guns are designed just to look cool, and that's clearly what's happened here. They've then tried to figure out how they work, and the VFX guys haven't necessarily spoken to the prop guys, who haven't necessarily spoken to the artists. I don't know, so it doesn't really work as a weapon. Good enough for the story purpose, I guess. Okay, Prometheus. Actually my least favourite of the franchise for reasons not to do with the quality of the filmmaking or the production design or any of that. I just hated the fact they rewrote an Alien prequel to not have any aliens in it. This is a nice take on an Alien franchise flamethrower. It looks fits in with the design language, if you will, of the nearer future of Prometheus. Lots of kind of SpaceX style industrial design, if I can put it that way. In fact, it looks more industrial and practical and simple, as it should, in theory, than the one in Alien, which has that casing. This definitely seems like it's some sort of high-tech weed burner for clearing foliage or brush or whatever on an alien planet. But the flamethrower is fine. And the burn they do on the stunt guy, very good. This is an interesting one. I actually approved of this one quite a bit, especially the blue video gamey muzzle flare. This implies some sort of projectile launcher. It's not a pulse rifle, but it's also not primitive current technology. It's something that feels in the middle, and it looks spacey enough to be plausible. What it really is, it's not this. This is an earlier model. It's the Walther GSP Expert. This is just the GSP, so it's an earlier type. In 32 caliber, which means like this one, it has the extended mag, but again, different design. I like the blue on there. Why not? We're designing these guns to fit a certain sort of corporate aesthetic. Why wouldn't they have colors? Why the muzzle flash would be blue? Yeah, it's a little hazy, but I liked it as something a bit different, and maybe because it references the laser guns that we don't really see in Alien. I don't know. But I think in the traditions of semi-disguised, or at least obscure, real-world guns getting used for the Alien series, yeah, why not?
Covenant, do you read me?
Okay, we are in Alien Covenant, I believe. So we walked back the no aliens in our Alien prequel thing. Great. I actually liked a lot of this film. The guns aren't great. They are absolutely contemporary. So we've got an AUG, specifically the Aussie F90, what's used in this. Not disguised really at all. And an ACOG. An ACOG in whichever current year this is. Not a fan. Why would you be taking these to space? This is a backward step from what appears to be high-tech pistols of Prometheus. Absolutely generic current day assault rifles. And they're a mixture in there as well, I think. It's not all AUG, but that's the one that sticks out. You don't really get a good look at the others. I guess they've put an extended rail system out on the F90 there, but that just makes it look more contemporary. It'd be more spacey if you just left it as an AUG, or especially if you put something on the gun. Try and disguise what it is.
Right, this is an F44A pulse rifle.
Now, Alien Romulus. Big fan of this design. Not the details of what they tell you about it.
Rotating breech electronic pulse action is what the Colonial Marines used.
But the design is great. I've spoken to the designer, lovely chap. Very envious of him for getting to design a precursor to it. Inspired by, obviously, there are bits of Thompson in there. There's the Beretta M12 on the grip frame, which we spotted fairly early on. And then the FAMAS is a definitive influence on that particular take on a pulse rifle adjacent shroud. Now, that rotating breech electronic pulse action has effectively canonified the Aliens Colonial Marines Technical Manual, because I believe that is how it's described in there. It's been a few years since I've checked back. But so the idea here is that this guy plays video games, therefore he knows everything about this gun, including how to use it. Although this is conceptualized, or I guess two phases to this, from what I understand. They wanted something that looks like a pulse rifle, but earlier design. It's white, ends up white, so it's referencing the white-coloured flamethrower from Alien. It's meant to look like a high-tech prototype pulse rifle, which I think it does really well. And then the layer of creativity on top of that, which changed the nature of this design, is the idea that it's designed for anyone to pick up and use with minimal training. That's why it has this, what I guess is early smart gun tech, kind of, with the stock that latches onto you and steers. Now, I believe the designer's original take on that was it has some sort of sensor and it has a readout on the back, but it's not locked into the shoulder and steering. It's like, forgive me if I get this wrong, you know who you are. Driver aids, where you go toward the central reservation and it nudges you back. I think the idea is it's steering you, a bit like some of the smart gun implementations in some of the games, I think is what he was thinking of going for. Then somebody else came in and went, we're going to have it actually lock onto your shoulder and steer physically around and engage targets on its own. So it's essentially a sentry gun that you wear. I still think that's cool and interesting and just about plausible as something that's rare and I guess it wouldn't be a prototype, but maybe it turned out to be really problematic for some reason and they ditched it. And you can make this fit in a way that some of the other stuff that we're going to see, probably not. Really cool design. And the front grip is based on an M203 grip. And the wire that we wondered about, some of us on the side, that is there. Originally, that was its tracking sensor, or its optical targeting system was built in there, and that was added. I guess it's implied that was added on to the design, hence it's not designed into it. But then that became a flashlight, because sci-fi movies love flashlights, and so that by implication is some sort of lead that leads to the flashlight, making it make less sense than the designer intended. Oh, and I believe a bit of Chris Vector in there as well, by the way. So the multiple different guns coming together and none of them are overtly visible. They're all just inspiring, whether it's visual detail, like the M12 and the Thompson, or whether it's the FAMAS and the Chris Vector, which are giving it its silhouette.
Yeah, as this isn't out yet, this is all we've got, but it says a lot.
Yeah, it does. So Alien Earth. Now, I know, I knew this already, or it's very clear now, there was this is a project greenlit before Romulus was even a thing, I believe. They have not copied each other's homework, which is probably a good thing in some ways. Not a good thing for any sort of continuity or logic, because we have the proto-pulse rifle F44A in Romulus, and then near contemporary to that, we have these things. And I'm not sure which one I'm more disappointed by. The one that's blatantly an off-the-shelf Snow Wolf airsoft pulse rifle in the background there. You can see that from the shape of the shroud. Pulse rifle should not exist yet by basically any measure, like even just logic. In a world where we've still got guys wearing contemporary tactical gear, we've already got pulse rifles? No. But then we have, and I think I do know the answer. I hate that more than slapping some pulse rifle bits or pulse rifle looking bits onto a Chris Vector, because that's what they've done with the other gun here. That makes more sense to me, especially with the Vector influence on the F44A and Romulus, although again, they wouldn't have known this when they did this design and this production stuff. I'm happier with that. Like if they changed out that very distinctive Vector stock, which neither of ours have, but that I believe this is a Gen 2 Vector like our 2, but it's wearing the old school style stock that's similar to the Gen 1 stock with that dip at the back. That's too iconic to the Vector to be on that gun. That should have come off. They should have used this one, which is much more nondescript. At least they haven't just chopped the top off a airsoft pulse rifle and slapped it on the top. But the more you look at it, the less sense it makes. What you've got there is a carrying handle with some sights in it, presumably, that you've slapped on top of something that already has a Picatinny rail where you could just put the optics on there. They've just done that to make it look like a pulse rifle. Still, all that said, if this was the pulse rifle for this series, I could live with it. Putting in an actual pulse rifle alongside it is just so dumb. It's making me not want to watch your show. Right, we then have what I have to grudgingly admit is a bit of continuity, and actually, maybe a better design. We have here a Steyr AUG. I'm not sure which type, but
Is it the more modern Thales F90?
I don't know if it's an F90. I can't see enough of the stock. It could be an AUG A3 from Steyr. Not sure. The trouble with it is, as well as trying again to look like a pulse rifle, including a big glowing 95, it's like glue some gears on it and call it steampunk. Glue a carry handle on it and call it a pulse rifle. Doesn't do it for me, albeit it's better integrated than on the Vector version. It's too big and bulky. It looks more like a Marita to me. Sorry, Starship Troopers fans, but the Marita is a pulse rifle ripoff, and I will die in that ditch, shot by a Marita probably. Anyway, it's not a ripoff, but it's inspired by with the big old carry handle, and for me that's a much bulkier, less wieldy looking sci-fi gun. I don't like it as much. This is leaning in that direction. But yeah, such a weird mishmash of 3 different guns. Why not just pick one and make it one of the 2 lash-ups, kit bashes, not the airsoft pulse rifle? I can't get over that, I'm afraid.
You finished?
So there we go. Pretty much all of the live-action Alien franchise there. Needless to say, this will forever be my hero of the whole thing. Although the Smart Gun is a close second. It's my favourite sci-fi gun of all time, and actually, because I do guns, my favourite sci-fi weapon of all time as well. So that said, there's a time and a place for it, and that time and place is not where it's showing up in Alien. Sorry, going on about that again.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Thank you all for watching. Let us know in the comment section below other games, movies, TV shows or beyond you'd like to see on the show. And of course, subscribe. As always, a massive shout out to all of our supporters over on Patreon for supporting us, for supporting this entire project and helping make these videos happen. Links to support Jonathan and the Royal Armouries will be in the description below, so be sure to check those out. And down there you'll also find links to all of EXP's social pages. But with that all said, thank you again for watching, and we will see you real soon.